Good morning, everybody. Happy Mars Monday to you. This is Austin to Mars, starting this 5th week of the application process, round 1 of the application process. In this week's Mars 1 update, I would like to talk to you about something that I've been thinking about this week and for the previous couple weeks, about how the 5 qualifications and how those are part of Mars 1's decision to choose candidates or choose the astronauts. And I would also like to talk to you about the criticism that I've heard this week, a lot of criticism about the Mars 1 project. I remember receiving the email from Mars 1 stating that they had put together the list of qualifications that they thought they would need for astronauts to have in order to make Mars 1 successful. I clicked on the hyperlink and I started reading through the list of 5 character traits that everybody knows so well now. And as I was reading down the list, the excitement in me grew exponentially with each character trait, because I got the first one, I said, oh, I have that definitely. Oh, the second one I definitely have. The third one I definitely have, all the way down through number 5. So I got very excited. I sent the email to my wife and she opened the list and she gave me an immediate response. She wrote back and said, as I was reading through that list, it was as if they had written those 5 character traits about me or for my character exactly. And so that it was exciting because it kind of confirmed what I thought myself. So I didn't think that I was crazy in thinking that. So then I got really excited about the application and I couldn't wait for it to come out. Well, when the application finally came out, I filled it out and I made my video and I submitted it. And then I started watching everybody else's video. And I also started reading forums like the Mars1.com forum or Mars1fans.com forum, and reading everybody's responses about the 5 character traits and 2 other questions. And it was interesting because a lot of people felt exactly the same way I did, that those 5 character traits had been written about them exactly. And so that made me start wondering, and also I've had conversations in the past couple weeks, like for example, Gavin, the kid I talked about last week, Lou's son, who was very excited about Mars 1 and me being an applicant. I started thinking about those conversations that I've been having with those people and the videos that I had been seeing, and wondering if Mars 1 will take other things into consideration when they make a decision about the Mars 1 astronauts. For example, if they get 80,000 people to apply and thousands of them, let's say a tenth of them, 8,000 of them have embodied those set of 5 qualifications, then out of those 8,000, they have tons of people to choose from. So will they go on to a second set of criteria? For example, maybe they have, 10 doctors and 10 engineers and 10 pilots and 10 farmers in that 8,000 applicants, since all of those 8,000 applicants embody the 5 characteristics, and then we also have these doctors and dentists and engineers. Well, maybe they're thinking that it would be easier to just choose those people instead of training new people who have the characteristics but don't have that kind of training. They would spend less time and money and energy, and they could focus, if they chose the doctors, they could focus their 8 years of training on some skill that they don't have, like engineering. So instead of teaching me, for example, because I'm not a doctor or an engineer, but instead of teaching me to be a doctor and an engineer, they could teach the doctor to be an engineer and a farmer. So that kind of thinking is what I have been, it's what been going through my mind over the past couple days and past couple weeks. And I mentioned Gavin because he asked the exact same question to his father, Lou, after that Friday night discussion that I had with him. So I know that other people are thinking about this too, so I wonder how much of that will play into Mars 1's decision for, and also to the public, because the public is going to be choosing Mars 1 astronaut applicants as well to go to training. So how much of that goes into their decision? And to be honest, I would hope that Mars 1 and the public would choose a candidate who embodied the characteristics, the 5 characteristics, but also had some other level of training, like a doctor or engineer, because then that person would be very much qualified for the mission and they could concentrate on other types of training. That would make the Mars 1 mission successful. I'm not saying that picking people without those sets of training would make it less successful, but they could spend time doing other types of training. I think you get what I mean. But I just want the Mars 1 mission to be successful, and I think that I embody the 5 characteristics. I know that there are 80,000 other people out there who think they do too. So we'll see what happens with Mars 1 and the public's decision about who they think is most qualified. In Mars 1 news this week, I seem to hear a lot of criticism about the Mars 1 plan this week. There was even one newspaper from China called the People's Daily that claimed that 10,000 Chinese applicants had fallen for the biggest hoax in history in the Mars 1 project. As evidence, they said that they tried to go to the Mars 1 office in the Netherlands and Mars 1 was working out of a rented office and that there was no logo on the building and things like that. And they weren't the only ones who had criticism of Mars 1 this week. They were just the ones that were most prominent in the news. And even outside of the news, I went to a George Mason University off-student campus event this week, and I met a lot of people there, and they were very interested to hear that I was a Mars 1 applicant and about the whole process and things. But there was one girl I met there, and as soon as she found out that I was a Mars 1 applicant, she immediately said, "Mars 1 will never happen, I can guarantee it. I worked at NASA for a year, and I know for sure that Mars 1 will never happen." And that's great, but I worked in the federal government for 12 years, and in my specific sector of the federal government, I know for sure that there's nothing about anything in my particular sector that I know for sure. I don't know for sure if we can accomplish something or not accomplish something. I think that I definitely respect where she's coming from. I respect her experience and her thoughts and her education and everything that goes into her decision about Mars 1. But I think that there's a lot that plays into us being able to make Mars 1 successful or not, outside of the technology and outside of what you might learn at NASA or outside of what you might learn in your education or something like that. One thing that I wanted to talk about in particular with this point is a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Tipping Point. And if you've never read Tipping Point or heard about it, it's very interesting, definitely worth following up on. But it's a concept of his in which you can see drastic changes happen in areas like human behavior or crime or biology or things like that. Huge changes happen in those areas after very small changes are made to the system. For example, there was a precinct in New York City that was very crime-ridden, and the police officers were trying to figure out how to get rid of crime there. And they just started making small changes instead of like making huge, cases and busts and arrests and things like that. They just made small changes. They would break up people who were standing on street corners, or they would pull more people over, or things like that. And what they saw was, while making individual changes didn't have an impact on the overall level of crime, the set of small changes that they made, at a certain point, they saw crime drop off dramatically. So they made small changes, crime was like this. Just a few changes later, crime went like that. And that's what's called a tipping point. And what I think we're witnessing right now is a tipping point in space exploration and technology and planet colonization. Because NASA and the other big space organizations around the world, like Russia's space organization and the ESA and JAXA and things, they have done a really great job of getting humanity this far. We've been to the moon, we have satellites, we have rovers on other planets, we have probes that have gone almost outside of our solar system and things like that. But we're not seeing advances like we were during the space race. There was a huge buzz all over the world during the space race between the United States and the USSR. It was very inspirational for people that lived during that time, but it has tapered off significantly since then for whatever reason, politics or funding or whatever. And I think right now what we're witnessing is a tipping point not only in space exploration and technology, but also a tipping point in the interest that people all over the world have in space exploration and colonization of other planets and technology. And that's apparent when you take a look at companies like SpaceX, who have docked with the International Space Station. They're a private corporation. And you take a look at a company, the Virgin Galactic, who will be offering tourism to suborbital flights soon. And you look at the project for Inspiration Mars, who plan on sending 2 people around Mars in 2018, 501-day trip around Mars. And you start to see this buzz growing in everybody talking about it, but also in the private organizations who are going to start inventing the new technology to make this kind of stuff happen. I think there's evidence also I went and looked at Google Trends, and Google Trends shows space, or I think Mars, colonization of Mars, search term. The searches for colonization of Mars have grown a huge amount. They're higher now over the past couple weeks than they've ever been before. And so I think that is evidence of a tipping point in the interest in space colonization. And I think it's really exciting and fun and interesting to be a part of history as it's being made. And I hope that you guys agree that what we're witnessing is a tipping point and a resurgence of interest in human space colonization and space travel. And I hope that you can see how excited I am about it, and you can see through my videos or my application or my website how I meet the 5 qualifications in the Mars 1 criteria, and that you and Mars 1 choose me to be a part of that process, and I can help make that successful. That's all for this week's Mars 1 update. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like my page or subscribe, and also tell your friends about me and check out my application on the Mars 1 website and rate it. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys next week. Thanks for listening, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.
We boldly go beyond the moon, a mission starting that will soon unite the world for one and all. Inspired children, big and small, they will watch and will dream. As adults, they will bring